Okay, I'm actually tempted to now continue on the whole education front here, but there are a couple of learnings in this talk that work to capture users, but also you could also say it captures minds, and it is capable of capturing children's minds and inspire them. I'm Volker. My baby at the moment is Oyster Crowd, which is we help startups grow. We do it slightly more intensely than a normal accelerator or incubator program does. Want to basically help you get faster, better, and do the whole thing more efficiently. I also have a little game studio. That's Blueback, Emerge Education. That's the accelerator program out of Oxford. Cognizance and Infantium are both cognitive science-based ed tech models. Infantium does a cognitive adaptive early learning platform, starting to work with kids from as early as 2 years old. Prior to that, it was a BlackBerry. Scarce was a mobile social gaming platform. The rest was gaming. The Sperm was an incubator very early on, and I mentioned I was a lawyer. Anyway, let's go into the whole user side of things. So if you're founding a company, starting a company, running a company, you will need users, right? Otherwise, you can probably close up shop, go home, because without them, you're nothing. So they're extremely valuable. You basically look at two different parts of the equation here. First is you need to try and get the users. That's the acquisition part. And once you have them, you need to retain them. And that is how you actually build long-term relationships who, they will hopefully never leave you again. If you want to have a business that's really safe in that respect, try toothpaste. Apparently, you will not change the toothpaste brand you grew up with. You change everything else in your life, but you stick to the toothpaste you grew up with. So on the acquisition side then, in the mobile side, store features by Apple, things like this, they exist in every industry. So take this only as a token. But they're, of course, they're the golden fleece. They're the bee's knees. The trouble is you cannot really influence it, right? Apple doesn't give you a telephone number. You can't just call and say, dude, I want on the homepage, please. If you get there, though, a lot of people see you. You don't have to pay for it. Fantastic, but unfortunately very unreliable. That was one too quick. There's the whole thing, PR, press, social media marketing, all that stuff. You need to do this. And there are better people than I to talk to you about this in depth. I think this morning you have heard some of those talks. Very important. Then there is the devilish thing of paid acquisition, right? You would have, in previous days, you would have called this, well, that's an advertising play or something like this. And advertising still plays a role. On the mobile side, less and less, because it's just not that effective a medium to acquire users. Cross-promotion works better. Incentivized installs, where basically you place an ad in someone else's app or game, and if someone clicks on it, you earn, and you incentivize users to, I don't know, download this thing, and you get 500 coins in my game free. There's tons of tools that you can use to do that, and you should absolutely do that. But again, it is not that easy, and I tell you in a moment why. And then there's social, and I'll get back to that a bit more. Social is nice because it allows you to tap in not only into one user, but potentially, if you do it well, also into that user's friends. And if she has many friends, you're a happy person because then you acquire more users. Now, in all of this, time is of the essence. When I spoke about paid acquisition, if you're launching an app on the iPhone, and you really, it's all about eyeballs. If people don't see your game, what do you do? Or your app, what do you do? So in order to use paid installs, cross-promotion, etc. In order to get into the US charts, you need to spend $100,000. And you have to spend them in one day. You know, the whiskey bottle that I would need to, when I sit at home waiting, did I make it into the chart, it would be very, very large indeed. There are ways you can try and game the system a little bit. Apple changes their feature slots, for instance, always on a Friday. So if you start spending your $100,000 on Wednesday night, then by the time Thursday night comes, volumes and velocity, and they're the two metrics they apply, will be relatively high. So you have a higher chance that one of the Apple editors will say, "Oh, look at that app," and then you get a feature at the back of it. But hey, $100,000 in a day. No, it doesn't. There you go. So let's focus on retention, though, because that is it's a nicer bit. Acquisition is hard. Whatever you do, you have to do all of that of what I spoke about before, and probably a little bit more. Now, what many people, however, do with their products is once they have acquired a user, they don't actually optimize the way that user is treated within your product, service, platform. And that's plainly silly, because they're in there. Just shut the door, don't let them out again. However, if you do this in a not so smart way, they run away very quickly. The first thing you should do in order to retain users is make something absolutely bloody awesome. If you make something that is so beautiful and useful and well presented with a fantastic UI that they've never seen it before and is useful to them, why on earth would they ever leave you? They'll come back because it is awesome. It's really good. Try to over-deliver, to deliver more than you would normally be required to. Those flowers I put there, there's a company you might know, Zappos, and the founder, Tony Z, wrote a wonderful book which you should read. It's called Delivering Happiness, because he said, I'm not running an online retailer, I deliver happiness. So one day in their online store, Zappos is an online shoe retailer, and they don't sell any exclusive shoes or anything. You can literally buy anything there. They have a couple of special things. If you don't like your shoe, you send them back, and they pay for you sending them back. And if you order 10 shoes and you send 10 back, that's okay. They pay everything. But because they do that, people feel bad. They treat you well. They treat you really, really well, and therefore, people actually don't just send back and are silly and do that. They're actually responsible. This thing, though, is what turns Zappos into a phenomenon when it comes to customer service and therefore in user retention. One day there was in their department, some guy picks up an order. There was a girl that had ordered a pair of white heels, and he said, "Hang on a sec, girls ordering white high heels? When do you order white shoes? Or when you get married?" So he went online, Googled her name, and lo and behold, yes, she was getting married 2 weeks later. So not only did they send her the pair of shoes and upgraded it to overnight delivery, but they also sent her a bunch of flowers. Now, that woman will shop with them forever. And so will I, frankly, because someone who actually shows me that, this thing, the customer is king. Now, that lady was their queen, and they made her feel like it. So you do that, this user will be yours forever. But also, this user will tell every single one of their friends that story, and they will go, wow, what a company. I will buy my shoes there now. Over-deliver. And now, use the power of social. Social, it's this weird, fuzzy thing, right? What is social? What do you do? Oh, I do social. So let's have a look. So Wikipedia says, social refers to the interaction of organisms with other organisms and to their collective coexistence. It goes on for about 2 paragraphs. But it's interaction in respect of anything that is relevant, right? So this would then look like this. Yeah, so basically, this is social interaction. They all go there because they know, they need to huddle together, otherwise they freeze to death. And so it is a bit tricky, though. I've never been in a penguin colony, but I would expect that there is a hell of a noise, and you cannot actually hear a word because everyone's talking. That is because in this big group, context is missing, and you need context because otherwise, you don't get anywhere. That's where I stumbled across this concept called object-centered sociality, and that's not. It sounds like a Web 2.0 term, but it isn't. It's actually a sociological term, and the idea is that social context evolves around objects. So today, our object is the startup scene in Bulgaria. I might not actually have anything in common with anyone else. But because we are together here today to discuss, any number of facets surrounding startups in Bulgaria, that is our common object. And therefore, you're not actually running away on a Saturday afternoon. Because we have a common object. So social is interaction in context. That is what I say. So those guys there could be, one is a bin man, the other is the mayor, there might be a policeman, and the other guy might be a convict. They have nothing in common with each other, but because they're playing petanque at the moment, there is their object. So whilst they are doing this is something that provides social context to them and that makes it insanely useful. Now what you have to do when you use that is basically make sure that you generate objects that are useful. You need to generate context, make it relevant to people, and frame it in the right way. The reason why context matters is, scale alone is wonderful. How many users do you have? 350 million, dude. But scale alone kills conversations. Because 350 million people, or those 200,000 penguins that we saw, you cannot have a discussion with each other. Whilst I'm standing up here, we can't have a good conversation with each other. When I sit down there later on, or if we stand outside over coffee, that works better, because we need dense two-way interaction to do this. And again, you have your one user. In your bit, you can create that object straight away, and then you can create. From there onwards, you can create tools that actually allow them to expand that object to include others. And this is how you can use social and retain it, increase the usefulness of the service, product, app that you're providing, and retain them in a very, very subtle way and in a good way. You're not being nasty. You're not sort of try and build a labyrinth to make sure that they can't leave. They want to leave, but they can't leave. The next one that you can use, the power of engagement. Sometimes referred to as gamification, which I think it short sells the whole thing. It uses behavioral dynamics that, yes, are present in every game, but they're also present in most other things in life that you do. So it's all based around psychology. And what you really want to do is you want to change behavioral patterns, right? In your case, when you want to acquire and retain users, you want to change that pattern. My pattern is I pick it up, okay, I put it down, I forget about it. And you want to change that pattern because you want people to pick it up and say, wow, I need to get back. Oh yes, actually, and then you end up Facebooking all night or something like this. Now, more graphically, you want, when you're into ecology and that sort of stuff, you want people to stop driving a Range Rover that guzzles fuel like mad and want them to start driving a hybrid. Yeah. Now, the approaches that we've had in the past were normally, and this is similar to the school teacher. Threatening, if you don't do your homework, then then something bad will happen. I'll call your mom, whatever, and you will do it, but only as long as that stick is right next to you. This "litter and it will hurt" sign works if there's a camera on there or if there's someone walking around. if you're in the middle of the forest and there's this thing, and you are, I hope you wouldn't, but if you just want to throw something away, the sign alone won't do it. Now, this is Kemal Atatürk, the founder of modern Turkey, and so when he took over the country, he wanted to create a secular country. Because he thought, religion had brought so much trouble over it, much better if the country itself is secular. Now, the trouble was, trouble in inverted commas, that Turkey is a Muslim country, and most women wore the veil. And he said, look, I'm fine with them being Muslims. I'm fine with them believing what they want, but I want my country itself to be free from those symbols, because only then can we build that. So how do you get rid of that? Now, you could make a law saying, from now on, wearing the veil is prohibited. That's the Litter and Will Hurt thing. What he did was this. He said, prostitutes are required to wear a veil. And of course, no woman would wear a veil, because she wouldn't want to be seen as a prostitute. It is still the stick, but it's a much more subtle approach to the stick, right? Now imagine you would say, every pedophile needs to drive a Range Rover. No footballer would drive Range Rovers anymore. Everyone would look like, oh my God, no, I don't want to do this. Trouble is, all this stuff is based on rules, and rules are per se a little bit boring. They're hard to enforce because you need to be there to do it, and they provide negative incentives. And if you're driven by negative incentives, you do it as long as there's that pressure, that negative pressure. And that is not a very good retention tool, because the moment the door opens, you're out. And that is not what you want to do. So let's have a look, because there's also this other side, right? The nice, warm, fluffy side. Everyone feels good if something good happens to them. Reward systems. They're very old. Loyalty cards, they've been around forever in various forms, for hundreds of years, in fact. They're more modern versions. Most of them, however, they only provide a singular incentive. They're quite uncreative. For you as a provider, they're often a little bit costly. And again, they're still slightly boring. But there are different things how you can do this. This is the staircase of out of the subway station, or out of a subway station in Stockholm. And not only did they paint the stairs, but they actually put sensors underneath and a sound system in. So if you would go up the stairs, they actually played like a piano. 68% of people started using the stairs versus the escalator right in front, that worked perfectly. And there was no sign that said, please use the stairs. There was nothing at all. It was just a lot more fun. And it gave you a nice reward by hearing piano music to do this. They tried a different thing with a bottle bank, where this is just a normal, ordinary bottle bank, and then they put on top this video game arcade machine. And I think the way it works is that the lamps light up, and the faster you throw your bottle into the hole where the lamp lights up, the higher your score, and then ta-da, nothing happens. Just you can't win anything, you don't get a reward, nothing. 80% increase because it's so much more fun. They did similar things. There's thousands of these examples. Littering in schoolyards is massive. Try and teach a kid. No, you should not litter. Doesn't work. And if you have 1,500 kids running around at break time, you can't have as many teachers running after them and say, look, you get into my book. So they did a big bin, and then they put a sensor around the top. And whenever you throw something in it, it made like a slurping noise. And the kids were racing around the playground trying to find litter so that they could mimic that noise. Works wonderful. Now here's an interesting one though. So this is the dashboard of the Ford Fusion 2011 or so, a US model. It's a hybrid car. And besides it looking very fancy, it has this funny thing there. this plant. What on earth does a plant, like a digital plant, do in your car? Now what it does is, if you drive cautiously and economically, this plant will grow and thrive. And if you put the pedal to the metal and drive like a maniac, it will wither. And a few weeks after I heard about this for the first time, I was in San Francisco, and I stepped into the cab, and it was this car. And I was so excited. So I asked the taxi driver, I says, dude, does that actually change anything? And he was one of those macho taxi drivers, right? And he was almost embarrassed, but he said, it does. Yes, I want my plant to live. So I thought, wow, okay. Now let's try some numbers on this, right? So there's about 850 million cars in the world. I assumed an average mileage of 20,000. As I hardly drive at all, and there's other folks like taxi drivers or so who probably drive a lot more. But let's say 20,000 miles. And I do apologize. This is the first time I used that slide was in England, so this is all in miles and gallons. So the taxi driver said he saved 5 miles to the gallon roughly because he wanted to save his virtual plant. Now that translates into, what's that? Nearly 61 billion gallons? Anyway, it's more than half of Saudi Arabia's annual oil output. All with a Tamagotchi in your car. And why do you do this? Not because anyone tells you to. Not because, there's a big sign, you should not race and you should drive economically, etc. No, just because, there's a positive incentive and it is actually fun. Now this, of course, that example is, of course, totally flawed because we would have to put this into every car in the world and all the rest of it, which is probably not working. But the concept works beautifully. Again, psychology. You've heard a lot more about this and a lot more detailed about this morning. So therefore, only a very, very few traits. There are a couple of things that work everywhere. People are competitive. They're very, they just are. And that is not even a new thing. It happens in all sorts of situations. At the same time, we all love our friends and collaborating with them and doing things together and helping each other out. And sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. And then there's this, which illustrates the whole thing quite nicely. So I mentioned earlier, I used to be a lawyer, so I still have a couple of lawyer friends, not so many anymore because they don't know what I'm doing. So I have these two friends. One is he's a partner in a corporate law firm in London, very mid-40s, very formal. The other is I think head of HR for a big investment bank. Those two guys, dark pinstripe suits as they are, they changed their way to work so that they could check in on Foursquare into their favorite pub because they were competing for the mayorship, for that crown. This is all you get. You don't get anything for being on Foursquare, although in this burger place where we were last night, we actually got a milkshake for the first check-in ever. Why on earth would they do this? I mean, these are serious guys. They work many, many hours. If you've ever commuted through London, that's not fun during rush hour. And yet they change their way to work because they're got you. And again, it's a positive trigger. They love competing with each other on this. Now you can also use it for slightly more useful things, right? Nike Plus. Most of you probably know this. It's that chip in your shoe, and then you can measure all sorts of things. I can always measure how slow I'm running, and then you can share it on Facebook or on Twitter. I realized one thing when my friends, old man I am, when my friends do this and say, look, I just completed my 10K run. I always thought, my God, who wants to know? But they had like 15 comments underneath here. Way to go, and you will do it, etc. It's a positive reinforcement of your friends basically firing you on. You can do this. Positive. Again, no one is being forced to do anything. And then back to education. This is Lee Sheldon. He's a professor in Indianapolis, and he abolished school grades So in the US and the UK, we do A, B, C, D rather than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He completely abolished grades and replaced them with XP. You know what XP are? Oh, good. Okay, experience points. Which, you know, the way children tick and the way progress works, it's a much more logical system. You know, you do not actually get a C first and then a B because you've been working hard. No, you level up. You progress. The results were quite astonishing. Overall attendance was up, or rather absence was cut by I think a third. Achievement was up by 1/3, 30% better results on the base. He taught an identical course and just changed the way he would market, and overall attainment was up as well. Now it's a bit warped because he's a professor for game design, but so you know everyone in his class, yeah, they got it. But generally, you know, simply by framing things slightly differently and by providing something, you know, if you have a C or an E or a D minus or something like this, you know, you're slightly downtrodden. You think, you know, God, what good can ever come of me and all the rest of it, you know? So even if I go forward, you know, it's a C. However, when you go and you level up to another, you know, to another level, it's a positive trigger, and it allows you to actually see that path of progress for yourself, your path of progress, rather than, oh shit, you know, that guy is already there. So again, it's about framing things and creating those positive triggers. Engagement tools. They're the ones. They're, as I said, only very, very few. Where's my slide? This is the wrong copy. I have another slide for you, and I'll have to put it up some stage, or I will tweet it later on. I can't believe it. Anyway, last one. Yeah, it might be sabotage. The last one, you know, do use the power of mobile. And this is when you want to go to market with a product, a service, anything. Mobile is by far your best bet to go out. You know, do not restrict yourself to Bulgaria unless you teach something that is very specific to Bulgaria. Most things that people work on, is I've been mentoring some startups at the beta house here over the last 2 days. Most startups, you know, the products, the services that they're working on, they're global. You know, people need those products and services in the same way here than they need them anywhere. And yet, I found someone and said, you know, and we're doing this, that, and the other, and you know, so we're rolling out in Bulgaria next year, and then, you know, their big audacious goal was, you know, we're going to the Balkans in 2015 or so. No, you know, you can, with something like mobile, you can actually go global straight away. Why would you not? You know, it's there. They're all there, and they're, you know, you have the interwebs. You know, you can upload it very, very quickly. The reason why you should do this is because, you know Metcalfe's law, right? The value of a network is the square of its users. It was done for, I think, was it Ethernet ports or something like this? To demonstrate how useful ports were on computers. Imagined that people would actually query that. And this works for mobile incredibly good. Mobile is the most powerful medium that we have ever had, for actually more than 3 reasons, but I'm tackling 3. The first one, as I said, is big. It's really, really, really big. 87% of the world's population have access to mobile, versus roughly, what's that, a third to the internet. Now, the guys who have access to the internet are also the third that has the most money in the world. But in terms of reach, you know, you will not be able to beat mobile. It depends, however. You know, if you want to roll out in North America, in Western Europe, you know, any campaign, marketing, etc., absolutely should also include the whole online part, but do not forget mobile. Because mobile is also personal. And this is something, when you think back, everything I told you about the power of social, the whole engagement side of things, they work best in a personal environment. Remember those dense two-way conversations? They work best when they're personal. So I threw up a couple of examples up there. Everyone who's smiling is older than 25. You know, sometimes it's astonishing when you look at this, the wallet. You know, it takes about 26 hours for a user to report a stolen wallet, 68 minutes to report a phone. Because yes, you go like, shit, I can't even call anyone anymore. That doesn't work. Very, very personal, and everything that is personal allows you to build that context into this. The contextual side of mobile, however, is important for one other reason, and that is because modern-day smartphones are extremely sensor-rich. And that allows you to extract data, package it in a meaningful way, again, think of social objects, to package it around, make it useful to the user, you know, because it's the first really personal mass media. No one shares their mobile phone. People don't share their phones. You know, people often will look at you if you say, oh, could I borrow your phone to make a phone call? You know, no. Can I quickly have your computer to Google something? Yeah, whatever. But people tend not to share their mobile phones. They're always carried. You know, this whole thing, wallet, keys, phone. They're now, at least, from a data point of view, always on. That was only a couple of years back when data plans weren't as widely available. That was not actually true because the phone was on, but its signal to the world, other than a phone signal, was not actually there. Today, most of the time it is. It has a built-in billing system, and one where you don't actually need a credit card for. And bear in mind that I think about 3/4 of the Earth don't have credit cards. So if you actually want to sell them stuff, you know, you better have a way to do this. Mobile does give you that way. It's present at the point of creative impulse. Because you carry it all the time, you know, and this is why we've all heard of those window shopping phenomena where people basically go and then they shoot a photo or scan whatever barcode and then try and buy it online. However, you know, this whole impulse buying thing or impulse decision making is aided by a device that is capable of capturing where you are at that time when this thing strikes you. You can very accurately identify your audience. It's not by IP address or anything, you know, because it's you. If I don't know, if someone just scrapes Foursquare, my Foursquare, they will know that, you know, I've arrived in Sofia yesterday afternoon, did this, that, and the other. I flew in from Manchester via Frankfurt. Da, 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 da. It tells you a lot about my moves already, and this is not, you know, useful in terms of, I don't know, I'm not sure what the NSA would make of it, but if you're, let's say, someone who runs a mobile travel service, that is insanely important because it actually allows you to see, you know, what is this user doing versus someone else, and then you can adapt your offer to them again to create that context and make it relevant, and that will allow you to deliver something that is awesome, not in a general sense, but to that particular user as well. It also captures social context. I spoke about that separately, I think. And last but not least, it enables augmented reality, which I think will become a very, very interesting part. I'm not so sure if Google Glass will be the one that disrupts that space. Someone recently explained to me, he said Google Glass is to wearable computing what the Apple Newton was to tablets. So it actually started the whole thing somehow, but it wasn't really a mass market thing. Although I'm buying one, I think, once they come out. So in summary, to capture users, first of all, make it really, really awesome. Make sure that you make sure that it's relevant wherever you can. Tweak those things wherever you can. Ignore mobile at your peril. Make it social. Use the power of social. Make it very, very contextual and engaging. And I still need to find that slide. Any questions? Thank you very much, guys. No tweets? I have 5 minutes and 17 seconds on the clock for questions.
Okay, so do you have questions, guys? Come on.
Otherwise, we go have a beer. That's okay.
Yeah. Just one. Okay. Go ahead.
What do you think about the Oculus Rift headset?
What do I think about?
Oculus Rift. It's augmented reality glass.
It's pretty cool and extremely geeky. I've been playing around with it, and I promptly ran into a wall. And I think it's really cool. I doubt, it's a little bit, I mean, Google Glass at least you can see, so you can use it whilst you're doing something. If you want to play a first-person shooter or so, dude, it rocks. Will this be something that people will use in a wider context? I doubt it.
Can you tell us about that one slide that didn't end up making it into the deck for whatever reason? Because that was honestly the absolute most amazing slide.
That was such a great slide, indeed. Yeah, I'm trying to find it.
No, but like, tell them about it.
Oh, tell them about it.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, it's true. Okay, the lost slide. That's my next talk. The lost slide. What I did, and I'll tweet a copy, I promise, or a link to that site. What I had done is, when I spoke about engagement tools, I only brought you the two most blatant ones: competition, collaboration. That is very, very easy. And that fine lady has done a no doubt wonderful talk this morning where she actually told you about a lot more. Yesterday we did a talk right after each other, and I thought, I can't do this. I can't say the same thing. So I added one slide, which is a diagram of a guy who is a lot smarter than I am. He's one of the leading gamification gurus that literally maps out every single, well, not every single probably, but hundreds of different combinations of tools that you can use in order to design engaging loops. He's called Yukai Chu, and his website is yukaichu.com, and it's very, very hard to spell, so therefore you probably get the website wrong. I will tweet it. It is absolutely terrific, and if you are in the process of designing an app, a game, a product, a service,
Marketing.
or market any of those, do make sure that you have a look at it, because it is absolutely terrific. I nearly cried. It was so good.